It's brewing, okay, I think. Good morning, I'm Jim Mason, president of Parental Rights Foundation and parentalrights.org. It is my honor and privilege this morning to welcome Bishop Marvin Winans to this Facebook Live conversation. We'd like to know where you're tuning in from, so leave a comment. Let us know where you're watching from, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and sign up for our email newsletters. And I've got an offer later on that I'll share with you. Bishop Winans is an award-winning gospel singer and is 1/4 of the legendary gospel quartet, the Winans. He is the founding pastor of Perfecting Church, one of Detroit, Michigan's foremost congregations, serving over 4,500 people. Pastor Winans was raised in a household of faith by his parents, David and Dolores. He received the gospel message at an early age and began his own ministry in 1970. Pastor Winans serves on the Parental Rights Board of Directors, and just being acquainted with him has raised my cool factor in the eyes of my own kids. Good morning, Pastor.
Good morning, Jim. How are you?
I'm good.
That is great.
So to call you a Grammy Award winner is a little bit of an understatement. You were nominated 15 times for 8 different albums and won 6 Grammys, plus numerous Dove and other awards. Where did that come from? What's been your inspiration?
Well, it was something that we as a family did. Singing was something that happened constantly in the Winans home. It wasn't. We would be considered, and my mother doesn't like for me to say this, but we would have been considered as a poor family. But we were rich because we had each other and we had music. My mother and father met in a choir, and so music was what we did. We sang in that big station wagon, going to church, coming from church, going to the shopping centers. There were no malls back then. And everything we did, singing was a part of it. When we were at home, we would have our legendary imaginative Grammy Awards, and we would pick winners from among ourselves. So when it happened, it was really a dream come true.
So when did your musical career start to really take off with you and your brother and sister?
It started taking off. Our father was very, very instrumental in making sure that we did those things. We started doing concerts here in the city of Detroit. Before we had albums, we would do concerts. And our father came home, because we rehearsed all the time, and said, "You all ought to do a concert." And he went out and just started working, and then stepped back and let us do what it is we did. And it was always wonderful when we would do things. We were always looking for good talent in the city of Detroit. And then one day, one of the members that used to be in our group started singing with Andre Crouch, and he started telling Andre about us. And when Andre heard us, as they say, it was history. We did our first international album, introducing the Winans, and it would have been 1979, 1980. And we've been going ever since.
When did you begin Perfecting Church?
Perfecting Church started May the 28th, 1989. We started with 8 people, 4 of whom I clothed and fed, and 4 other young people, very young people. The eldest was 23, and 2 were 21, and 1 was 19.
So in your capacity as a board member of the Parental Rights Foundation and as a pastor of a large church in a major city, what do you see the challenges for parents and families today?
The challenges that are facing parents today, not only have we have a large church, and we have a great amount of children, is that for the past 21 years, I've been directly involved in education. We have the Marvin Winans Academy of Performing Arts, which is a public school academy, better known as a charter school. We also have a Detroit charter school, a Detroit public school charter school, and we manage 3 schools. And so I've seen the change. I'll give you an example of something that happened with one of our students, and we went to call the parent, and we discovered that in this time, a lot of these children are being raised by grandparents. And one grandmother changed my whole perspective. She said, Pastor Winans, children have not changed. Parents have. And when she said that, I listened, and it changed how I even approach it. Whereas in decades past, when you became a parent, it said that you became more responsible. It said that you had an obligation to your children. And when there was structure, when there were 2 parents basically in every home, a father and a mother, there was more structure and more of a model, more of an example for children to look up to. I'm going to be like my dad. I'm going to be like my mom. When you remove that very basic structure from home life, then it changes the balance and the equilibrium of parents. One, if you have one parent that is, involved in a child's life, and another parent that shows up every now and then, or if you have 2 different parents that have 2 different ideas of how a child is raised, and they're not living in the same home, then when the child goes to a liberal parent, let's say, then things are going to happen more to the liking of the child. Then if you go to a conventional or more conservative parent, then there's going to be strict rules that you have to, adhere to. Well, the child knows how to play both sides of the aisle, if you will, if I'm using political terms.
7 of those, and they know how to do that.
Oh, yes, they do.
Even
And they've done it. They've done it forever. So when there's one home, then the parents have to negotiate on how they're going to settle the issue, if they're going to be allowed to sleep over, if they're going to be allowed to do this, that, or the other. But when there's 2 separate homes, you can have 2 separate solutions, which really gives the child the advantage. And
So
the reason,
those of you just joining us, I'm here with Grammy Award winner and Detroit pastor Marvin Winans. Pastor Winans, you've described some of the problems in the modern family. What do you see as far as government intervention into the family?
I think this is where it gets very convoluted, because the right to raise a child should be squarely on the shoulders of the parent. And that means that there has to be somewhere, as President Truman said, where the buck stops. Someone has to make the decision. And what the government, whether intentionally or unintentionally, has done is they've said the buck stops with us. We say what is permissible. We say what is right. We say what is wrong. And if that kind of intrusiveness existed when my parents were raising 7 rambunctious boys and 3 girls, it would have been trouble. My parents were disciplinarians, to say the least. There was whippings that were given out. As my mother would say, as she does talks around various organizations and churches, she said, Time out would not have worked for me because I wouldn't have had time to do what I needed to do. There had to be either do what I say or there's going to be consequences. And we didn't want the consequences. So we did what our parents told us. And through that, we learned, we garnered respect, we understood who the authorities were. And I think a lot of times, even as it relates to things that are happening with police, things that are happening in various organizations, because children have not been taught respect or boundaries or how to honor things or people that are in authority, they feel as if what they do is important, as if what they want is important, and they give no regard to what others want to do. So the government has fostered that kind of behavior because the parents have been robbed of their right to say what a child can do and what a child cannot do.
Do you see that kind of thing happening in your community, either in Detroit in general or in your church?
I see it happening in our school community, in our education community, simply because the child knows they have the upper hand. And when the parent can be deduced to that of, and I don't mean this in a bad way, deduced to that of a caretaker or a guardian, then the child is really running the show. And the Bible says a child left to himself will bring you to an open shame. They don't know what they're doing. Therefore, the parents are needed. They are needed to guide the child. I'm a pastor, so don't be alarmed because I bring up the scriptures. The Bible says that we are to train up a child in the way he should go. So the inference, the onus upon training the child is in the court of the parent. The child only knows what he has been taught. And so the parent has the obligation of understanding that child, knowing that child, praying to discover who it is they're holding, even when they're an infant, to know the strengths, the abilities, the weaknesses of that child, and train them in what they should be doing.
So you signed up to be on the board of parentalrights.org and the Parental Rights Foundation. One of the goals that we have is getting an amendment to the U.S. Constitution to do the kind of things you're thinking about, or you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about the Parental Rights Amendment?
I think that it is necessary because what I've discovered in dealing with cases that have come up in our congregation, that really the child doesn't belong to the parent. The child is really, when we pull back all of the layers, a ward of the state. And I can understand that in extreme cases where children are being abused, where children are being locked in their homes. But that is an aberration. That is not the mainstay. For the mainstay, most parents love their children. Most parents want to take care of their children. And when you have a governmental system that robs the right of the parent to give their children a philosophical, a religious, a educational foundation, then why do I have this child in my house? You know, why do I have this child if I do not have the right to instruct it and to lead it in the way it should go?
As a pastor, do you feel like there's any pressure on you to avoid certain subjects in the area of child rearing or government intervention? Is that a thing that's happening?
I'm a different guy. I don't run from the fight. I run into it. But I think there are pressures that are placed on pastors, on teachers, on parents that, oh, if I want to spank my child or if I want to punish my child, then I am forbode by the government to do that. That's wrong. Again, there is a world of difference from correction and abuse. There's a world of difference. And when you have outside influences that if you correct a child, oh, that's abusive. And they call you in comes the CPS, the Children Protective Services, and they're taking your child from your house because they didn't want to obey your rule. We got a problem. And,
the Parental Rights
and I think that is what has.
A couple of days ago.
Go ahead.
Welcome to those who's joining us. I'm here with Marvin Winans. He's in Detroit, and I'm in North Foundation. Filed a friend of the court brief in a case in Colorado, where the situation was there was a report of abuse made, and a CPS investigator went to a preschool and took the child out of class and conducted a strip search looking for bruises, which there weren't any. That was done without the parents' knowledge or consent. And a few days later, the little 3-year-old kid was saying, "Mommy, I hope that lady with the white hair doesn't come back because I don't like it when she takes my clothes off." That's the sort of thing we're seeing more and more of. And is that the kind of damaging thing you're talking about?
That's what I'm saying. As a parent, they have the right to do things without you even being in the knowledge that it's being done. And what is so wrong about this is the child may not drop the dime or make the call, but a nosy neighbor, some friend that may have heard something can call. And next thing you know, your powers as a parent have been stripped from you, and you are left to the whims of the government.
One of the things that alarms us here in my job as the president of Parental Rights, and I'm vice president of Homeschool Legal Defense Association as well, is the number of investigations that are occurring today. Millions of children are investigated every year, and data provided by the U.S. government demonstrates that about 80% of the children who are investigated, often in an intrusive way, are found not to have been the subject of either abuse or neglect. And the remaining 20% are, quote, substantiated reports, which means that the investigator, in kind of the investigator's sole discretion, decided that there was some truth to the allegation. Now, we've come out with a report using government child welfare substantiated reports. You've had a chance to look at that?
Yes. That there's a disproportionate of minority children that are part, and this is in our state in Michigan, that in 2016, African American children in Michigan were substantiated for maltreatment at a rate of 1.58 times more than their proportions in Michigan child populations. And I think, again, what struck me as the first thing that struck me about this was, what is the determining factor of maltreatment? Who determines when someone is being maltreated, and what is that criteria? The second thing that struck me, and I'm saying that this is fact based on their indicators. I think it all will go back to what I stated at first, Jim, about the lack of two parents in a home. I think that what determines maltreatment, for instance, someone may consider discipline maltreatment, okay? And someone, as you just stated, in Colorado can go in and determine that this child has been mistreated. Two, if a child is getting everything he wants, as in the Texas, I forget the name that was given to the young man that got everything he wanted and lived a privileged life, and they blamed the parent for giving him everything he needed, and it was a privilege plea that he was overprivileged and didn't know how to act in the real world. I think that these numbers may be correct, but then we would need to go inside of the numbers to determine how they were calculated for maltreatment. I think there is the mistreatment of children on both sides. If I don't prepare you, if I don't make you responsible, if I give you everything you want because you cry, I am actually playing into raising an imbalanced child that when he goes to school, he's not going to be prepared to share. He's not going to be prepared to listen to authority. I was looking at someone sent me a video of a little boy. His name is James, and I think he has a little following. It's called Little James. And Little James is giving his mom the business. She's trying to get him to get in the car. Mama, I don't want to do this. Mama. Mama, don't do this. I want to go over there and let's talk. Why can't I do this? Now, that would have never existed in my being raised, or probably you. When we do not have established norms, and I think that's what's going to happen with the amendment, it will establish the norm that the parent has the right to raise their children. So if these numbers are accurate, then if we had structure and we had the parent having the ability to raise the children in the manner that they see fit, then I think these numbers would go down.
Anything else you'd like to say about your ministry, your music, your involvement in the parents' rights movement?
I am family through and through. I believe in family. I've lived and worked and shared the world with my family. And whatever we've done it together. And we've been proud to do it together, whether it's on tour in Holland, traveling to Africa, meeting with the late Nelson Mandela, or going to the White House for Bill Clinton or Bush, George W. Bush. No matter where we've gone, we've done it together as a family. And I shudder to think what would have happened to us had our parents not had the right to raise us.
Well, thank you for joining us today. For those of you who are watching, if you'd like to get a copy of our Parental Rights Foundation Disproportionality Report, You can follow links in the comments. Be sure to follow our Facebook page and click on the links in the comments. Sign up for our emails, and we'll give you regular alerts on the work we're doing and additional updates from Pastor Winans from time to time.
Yes.
Working together. I really just want to go back to something you said. This is really this work that we're doing together is really to strengthen families. And,
Yes.
and you and I share the belief that the family is the building block for everything good in society. And to the extent that government intrusion is actually eroding the ability of parents to raise their kids, that's a big part of what we're doing. But the ultimate goal is, through your ministry, through your music, through our work here, is to protect children, strengthen families, and empower parents to be able to raise their kids in the way they should go.
Yes.
So I just really want to thank you for spending this time with us today. I really appreciate your time. I really enjoyed getting to know you a little bit over the last year. So thanks.
Thank you so much. I'm rushing off now to one of our schools, and it's a wonderful thing to be involved in the lives of children that have less than you have, children that need a helping hand and direction, mothers that need to have a person involved in these children's lives because they have the burden of working, and they don't have the support system of a family. That is what family is about. Family is about support systems. So I'm happy to be a part of the Parental Rights organization that is trying to bring that type of support to families.
Well, God bless you and your work, and thank you for being with us. I'm Jim Mason for the Parental Rights Foundation, and we'll see you next time.